This is about drug addiction. So a little introduction. Drug addiction is a problem all over the world and it affects many people's lives. And the definition of it is a chronic relapsing brain disorder characterized by compulsive drug seeking, continued use despite harmful consequences and long-lasting changes to the brain's function. And a fact about it is drug addiction kills around 200,000 people worldwide each year. Some background information: drug addiction is something millions and millions of people are suffering with every single day. And drugs are still very accessible everywhere, and that's a huge problem. And I've seen drug addiction firsthand, which is very scary, and the way it changes people and also the way people act when they're off drugs. So a little preview, I'm going to talk about the science behind drug addiction, how drug addiction can affect your mental health, and the impact of drug addiction on our society and economy, and finally some support programs for helping people who are in need. So a little bit about the science of drug addiction. There's something called the brain reward system. So it's the dopamine pathway, which is a part of the brain's reward system, is activated by the drugs. And one neurotransmitter involved in the reinforcement and the pleasure is the dopamine. Drugs cause the brain dopamine's the levels to rise, which results in like the euphoric or the high feeling. And these are like three reasonings behind it, which is factors related to genetics. So between 40 and 60% of the risk of addiction is genetic, and the reliance and withdrawal. So when the body becomes accustomed to drugs and the user requires it to operate normally, and physical dependence develops, when the drug is cut back or stopped, withdrawal symptoms appear. These symptoms can be psychological, as in depression or anxiety, or it can be bodily, as in sweating, shaking, or nausea. How it affects the environment. Addiction risk is influenced by environmental factors, including stress, trauma, peer pressure, socioeconomic status. Addiction is significantly predicted by the early drug exposure or childhood trauma. So impact on drug addiction and mental health. So the first thing is co-occurring conditions, which is drug addiction and mental health issues kind of work in one, as in they happen at the same time, which they both worsen each other. The second one is brain chemistry, which is addiction can heavily change your mood and change your cognitive function, which will most likely lead you to anxiety and depression. And then third is decision making. So drugs can impair your judgment and your impulse control, which can cause you to make bad decisions and significantly take a toll on your mental health. Hallucinations. This can cause psychosis, which is a paranoia and hallucinations. This makes pre-existing mental health conditions worse, especially for people who already have mood or anxiety disorders. And long-term cognitive impairment. Long-term substance addiction can lead to mental decline, memory loss, and learning challenges. Makes it harder to control emotions or make wise decisions. And long after a person quits using drugs, these cognitive impacts could still be there. So a little bit of the impact of the society and economy, which is healthcare costs, which it costs a lot of money for people who are addicted to drugs, with the ER visits, hospital stays, long-term for chronic related illnesses like liver disease and stuff like that, loss of workers. When people are addicted to drugs and they are working a job, they don't show up as much when they start to get addicted, and they just fall off their life. And then an estimated $740 billion is spent on healthcare, loss of productivity, crime-related costs each year as a result of drug uses in the United States. Another one is the increased crime. So drug addiction raises the expenses of criminal justice and law enforcement systems by fostering criminal activity such as violent crime, drug trafficking, and theft. Another thing is social impact. So families and communities suffer from drug addiction, which is like social isolation, homelessness, and other separation. The loss of social integrity and generational cycles of poverty and addiction make up the cost to society. So some support programs or some ideas that you can help drug addiction would be encourage collaborations between law enforcement and healthcare professionals to create new care between two different forces, and expand access to reasonably priced rehabilitation therapies and medically assisted treatment, which is also MAT. Provide aftercare services, peer recovery coaching, and sober living houses. And also just further educate students on drug prevention in schools, like for example, like the DARE program, but enhance that and offer risk individuals for early intervention. And also create employee assistance programs to encourage recovery, like in a work setting. And then a conclusion, so drug addiction is still a vital problem in today's world, and there needs to be a change for those in need. Drug addiction can be overlooked by many people, but it is such a serious issue, and I hope I can encourage people to help with this dilemma. Today I talked about the science behind drug addiction, how it impacts people's mental health, and how it impacts society and economy. I hope you have learned why drug addiction is such a horrible problem. Thank you.
Are you taking questions?